Welcome to the You Be the Judge podcast show. My name is Wiri Timoni. Today we have a very special guest joining us. He is the founder of Dreamtime Healing and Holographic Kinetics. Welcome to the podcast there, Steve Richards.
Thank you.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about holographic kinetics. So can we just kick it off and just tell us briefly who you are and how you came about holographic kinetics?
Okay, I'm an Aboriginal descendant. Now, the way we came about was my great-grandmother was actually taken away at the age of 8 by Aboriginal Protection Agency. She was found in horse shackles at the age of 14, sold to a drover for half the price of skins, and died at 15, giving birth to my grandmother. And my grandmother, not having a mother, was brought up in one of the missions, and the maids, the servants, the butlers, the gardeners, the clever men, elders, all took her under the wing, and they taught her all the old ways. So as I was growing up, she'd sit down and she would bombard me and my sister about the old ways because they knew the future. She'd often say, you have a big task ahead of you. Stay away from the communities. They argue, they bicker amongst themselves, and you'll never achieve anything, which I found to be true. So in growing up, it was constantly bombarded to us about old ways and what had taken place in the old ways. But at the same time, as a 4-year-old, my mother sat me down. She said, how do you know these things are happening? Because I was telling her the future. Because everything's happened before, which is deja vu. And I can access the past memories of the past. So therefore, I was telling her what was going to happen before it happened. By the time I was 8, I could turn a tap on and make water go around my finger without touching it. By the time I was a teenager, I was doing mind magic. But no one ever taught me. What am I doing? How am I doing it? And I realised that this is in our blood. This is all the old knowledge in our blood. And so I spent 50 years to look at our old knowledge and look at the science behind it. And it is a science. But it's a science based on law. And law is the universal knowledge. It's the universe that unfolds its knowledge to you of how this universe truly works. And when you apply it, it works. That's the beauty of this. So it came in 2 parts. Now, Dreamtime Healing using Holographic Kinetics. If I go in an Aboriginal community to work on people, then I can call it Dreamtime Healing using Holographic Kinetics and they understand what I'm talking about. If I go and call it Holographic Kinetics, I'm away with the fairies. Now, if I go to mainstream and call it about Dreamtime Healing using Holographic Kinetics, I'm away with the fairies. If I call Holographic Kinetics, it means a hologram of time, and we can access the hologram and we can change time. Then that's a more scientific approach that I understand. So that's how it came out. Man is a hologram of time. And we can actually access the hologram at this juncture and change the future of that dimension.
Can you tell us about what is spirit and how we can connect to it?
Oh, sure. Listen, we go back 60,000 years. Now, to understand that, before we made a canoe, we'd ask the spirit of the tree, and that's the essence what gives it life. When the spirit departs the tree, it is dead. When it departs the cockroach, it is dead. When it departs the dog, it is dead. When it departs a human, it is dead. But the spirit's still alive. It's only the body that dies. So meanwhile, the spirit of the tree, it moves through the firmament, the gases, the liquid, the rocks, the plankton, the plant life, insect life, animal life, and the human life. And it will evolve into the future into another dimension of experiences. So let's go back. Before we cut down the tree and made a canoe, we'd ask the tree, can I cut you down? And the tree'd say no. But the old fellow over there don't mind. So I'm going to ask the old tree over there and he says, yeah, I've been around a while, I don't mind evolving. So he donates his vehicle being a tree and he evolves into the next level. And there's your tree. Before I killed an animal, I would put out the spirit of the animal to donate itself. And the spirit will donate itself for sustenance. Next day there's the kangaroo. If I kill the animal without permission, that animal has a right to continue living in me. Now we get people out there with Tourette's, barking like a dog and clucking like a chicken. We take out the animal spirit, no more barking like a dog and clucking like a chicken. You understand? Everything in nature is alive, and the moment that entity enters a vehicle, it becomes a spirit. Then it's learned about the vehicle, how to drive the vehicle, how to communicate through the vehicle. And when it's done that time in the vehicle, it evolves to another level. It's the essence of life, is spirit. The soul is the external world. Now, to understand that a little bit more is You have a forward, you have a backwards, you have a left, you have a right, you have a high, you have a low. There's always an equal opposite. So while we're moving forwards, there's an equal opposite coming the other way in reverse. Another world, but an invisible world. So the external world is where your thought becomes a thought form, becomes a life form, and it captures electrons from the sun being the father. Those electrons spin around that little nucleus, lock into your cells, and becomes part of your soul. Now, that program of the soul is alive. It says, I need to be fed. You're my host. Feed me. Now, if it's anger, it needs to reproduce cycles of anger so it can get fed. As it grows to a thought form, to a life form, and the universe steps in. And the universe says, hey, you can't destroy this life form. Everything in my universe has a right to survive. You are the host. Feed the baby. So as your actions and reactions feed the baby, it's growing, it's evolving, it's learning about you. It then evolves to the next level and it becomes an internal created entity where it tries to take over. And then we have compulsive disorder, bipolar, schizophrenia, all these labels you want to put on it. But it's an intelligent life form that's been growing with you, that you've been feeding, that's become intelligent enough to try and take over you.
How can we use universal law, LORE, to better our lives?
Look, this universe is brilliant. It's intelligent. And when you actually learn to align yourself with it, in other words, when you learn to align yourself with your spirit, you see, your spirit came into the moment of conception. And when it came into the vehicle linked to your heart, linked to your bloodline, it says, I'm here for you. Tell me what you want. I'll rearrange this universe for you. But you know, we don't. We let the soul run us with all its programs. And spirit sits back and says, well, you must want it. So I'll let you have it because you've never told me otherwise. But now when you tell your spirit what you want, it says, okay, I can rearrange this universe. I can manifest any reality you want. I'm here for you. Tell me what you want. Now our culture always acknowledges the spirit of all living things. Always. Now, as I said before, if I killed an animal without permission, I violated the law. So the animal has a right to continue living in me. So it's sharing my body, but then at times it can take over, and then we have Tourette's. People barking like a dog, clucking like a chicken. I mean, we got recordings here of a German chicken farmer. And my God, you should hear him when he's laughing. You see, he's got roosters in him, totally taken over. He's clacking like a chook, this fella. You know, we find people that at times they bark like a dog. You know, we found, look, when you go back and look at the video in China when the 5G was first turned on, and they were saying this the animals can spread it. So in Wudong, they were throwing the animals out the window and killing them. And what we saw 3-year-old, 2-year-old, 5-year-old kids, some meowing like a cat, some were barking like a dog, because those spirits of the animals they threw out the window and jumped the kids. Do you understand? We deal with people all the time. They'll have animal spirits and they take on the traits of those animals. You know, you get guys who are out there, the hunters, oh my God. Shot the pig in the shoulder, the guy's had pain in his shoulder all his life. You know, shot the other animal in the stomach, he's a trouble in his stomach. Shot another one in the leg, a trouble in his leg. All those spirits will live in your traits. I'll explain something to you. We had a lady who came to me and she's had 3 spinal operations. She's riddled with pain. She gets to me 40 years later. I get her on the table a spirit that says the cause of the effect is 18 years old. Go there. Next minute she's screaming hysterically on the table, I forgot, I totally forgot. What happened? I totally wiped it from my mind. What happened? At 18 I had a head-on collision in the car. What happened? The other woman died. Thank you. So I checked for reciprocal exchange of energy and the spirit of the other woman's in her. And when I called her up, she's speaking out. You should have heard it. The bitch, I'll fix you for killing me, you slug ass. Very angry this woman was. So I said, Spirit, listen to me. Everything's happened now, it's happened before. Everything's happened now, it's going to happen again. You don't want the same to happen again, do you? No. Let's unfold time and space, put you outside time. And the moment I release the spirit, all the spinal issues disappear. Because the woman in the car died of spinal injuries. And when she jumped the woman, for 40 years, she'd been living the spinal issues while that spirit is in there, because that's stuck in that last moment of death, the spinal issues. But we're stuck in time. And that is what a repeat offender is in the prison system. They're repeating the same thing over and over because they're stuck in a moment of time. You know, we now sit on 3 courts where they're diverting the kids to us instead of locking them up because they're seeing the changes we make because nothing else is working. You've got to find the cause, the effect of what you're stuck in, and how far back in time. And spirit will take there straight away when you understand how to deal with it.
Is it like dealing with karma, dealing with your stuff, or
Okay,
karma are things that you've created?
karma is the universal law of compensation to compensate for your imbalance and bring it back into balance. Now, we find a mathematical formula, and we find, I won't go into how it works, but in the first 3.5 years, if you have a major trauma that comes from the first 3.5 years, I can pretty well guarantee you set it up. In other words, just say in a past life you're violent to your kids, then I know in the first 3.5 years you're going to be born to parents violent to you, because you have to learn the creation of what you create in the past for another. So that comes from the first 3.5. Now what we find is the death scene, and that comes from the first 7 years. So if someone dies of a massive trauma and they're stuck in the trauma of that death scene, they'll set up in the first 7 years. And then that death stream comes through and the trauma of that will be reproduced and reproduced again in cycles of similarity. Till we go back and we change the moment of time.
So how can people go back and change that moment in time, or what can people expect from a HK healing session?
Okay, there's two ways. I teach my students the basics for 7 days. That's the basics. And as they repeat and we take them to other levels, we bring more information in and we're teaching them more and more about how the universe works. The whole idea is law is the universal knowledge, and to align yourself to this universe. We have got totally away from this universe and its knowledge. Man is trying to take control and destroy the universe. It's trying to go ahead, and it's like that man saying, I know better than you, to this universe, which is brilliant. And it's trying to manipulate the universe itself. Well, that's violating the law itself. It'll have consequences in the future for these people. They just got to understand that you cannot fight against the universe. But if you work with the universe, it's brilliant. And it'll work with you. It'll manifest what you want. It's brilliant. People just have to understand that, and first to do that is you've got to listen to your spirit. And there's the intuition. Your spirit's the first thought comes in, is intuition. Then the second thought is the ego trying to take over and analyse. And then from the ego comes the soul and its programs that are running us. And one of the new ones we're looking for now is the ego entity in people. And my God, isn't that interesting? Because when we go after the ego entity, it's been hiding in there for a long time, and it does not want to leave. And we've had some of our students throwing contortions on the table as this thing comes up because it did not want to leave. We're finding we're taking him out now. That's apart from the other things we're taking out, you see.
I find a lot of people in, say, business, they're making very rash decisions. It seems like they're tapping into that ego entity. How did that ego entity get in there, and how do you deal with that ego entity?
Well, you've got to really understand how this universe truly works. And let's go back in the beginning. Now, man being a hologram of time, we've got to look at spirit. And spirit is a little ball of light, it's a nucleus. Okay, so if this ball of light's a nucleus, it has to have another factor, bigger part of the hologram. Now, I don't like religion because of what religion has done to our communities and communities around the world, and the dictating and telling they're evil and the black magic and the witchcraft, and virtually destroying their culture and then reprogram into Christianity. So we're going to go back and we're going to look at this program and how it worked. In Christianity, it says, it talks about the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The Father is the Son, holy above. In other words, the Ghost is spirit above, a ball of light. That's the next part of the hologram. Now that electrons from the Sun go around the Earth. It's that nucleus that captures the electrons. It gets programmed now, the thought to a thought form. It then locks into your cells as a life form and starts reproducing itself because you are the host. But let's go one step further. For 60,000 years, Aboriginal culture knew that the beginning of all life was a rainbow serpent. And of course, we look at it in the Western world, we say, oh, what a load of crap. Well, reality, let's just show you something. The electrons from the Sun spiral out around the Earth. They condense at the North and South Pole into the Aurora Borealis and the Aurora Australis, which is a rainbow serpent in the sky, which is the first form of light, which is the first form of matter, which is the first form of molecular structure. It is the beginning of life. Now, they've known that for 60,000 years. What else do they know for 60,000 years? They knew heaps. But when stolen generation came and they took away the knowledge, father used to pass the knowledge to his son over a lifetime and his son to his son. And sometimes the grandfather would incarnate as a grandson to keep the knowledge of the universe going through time. When they took away the children, there was no one to pass the knowledge on to. And most communities were deprogrammed and reprogrammed by the church. You go in and start talking about spirit, and some of these communities say, put their fingers up, you know, we was evil before Jesus came. No, we weren't. We knew law. You understand? There's programming. And you can look at the programming and realise that so many of our communities have been totally programmed and they don't understand our own culture anymore of our past. You know, we can make our body lighter and we can run 100 miles a day without hardly touching the ground. We could teleport across through time and space. We could go into a Burra circle and we can move through time. This was normal. Most of it's been lost. We have a few clever men that still have the knowledge, but most has been lost.
Do you think that this reality we're in, I call it the Matrix, and to me it seems like a Matrix grid, are we in what may be a simulation in itself?
Okay, look, after 50 years of research and working on maybe 100,000 clients over that period of time and training, you know, we've trained 2,000 students around the world. Now we're now in 42 countries. But in doing all this and all the cases we looked at, I'm starting to find a similarity of the hologram of life. Now, what's this? If something locks in, by that thought process locks into your cells and becomes a thought form, becomes a life form, it's going to reproduce, build up momentum as it reproduces. It sets up cycles of similarity in your life. Okay, so we've looked at and we found the formula for this, how this universe truly works. So we're going to take another part to another step of the hologram. Now, if that little cell, as part of the hologram, is repeating the cycles of similarity through life, then the bigger picture, there's going to be a bigger hologram that's going to be repeating the patterns. So, watch this. Right now, you live in a past, present, future reality. The last step's your past, the one you now is your present, and the next step will be your future, left, right, or straight ahead. Okay, so as a hologram, I have a past, I have a present, and future. Then wait. I must have a past, present, future, past. I must have a past, present, future, future. But wait. You have 6 invisible bodies, 1 visible body. Now, over here on the left, it's called deja vu. It's happened in the past, it's happening now, and it will happen in the future, and the future, and the future, and the future, through time, because life is a hologram of time, of similarity. But wait, if I, in the present, change the past, from today on, I can change your future outcome. That's what we're doing.
I'm beginning to think that what we're going through now, to me, seems like some kind of awakening or karmic cleansing, because as you said, right now, I'm starting to go back to my past and I'm starting to look at events that have happened in my life where I might have made someone suffer. So I'm trying to approach them again and ask them for forgiveness. I'm going through all this kind of like karmic cleansing, I call it, for myself. At the same time, I'm seeing inflation, price hikes, tax increases, war, climate change, carbon agendas, lab-created BS, bad science, and a whole bunch of other things. What do you think is currently going on in the world at this time, right now?
Okay, I've been teaching for 22 years, 23 years next year. In 22 years, from 22 years ago, and in my book, it started in the 2013. And I've been saying to my students, prepare yourself for 2023 because it is a conjunction. So, what is a conjunction? Let's have a look at it. Well, people aren't going to like what I'm about to say, tell them, but the reality is you can do your research. And we have gods allocated to this earth, like it or not. And the last lot of gods that came down here was in 776 B, and that was Zeus's descendants, Hades, Hermes, Apollo, Dias, Demetrius. And they had a war with the previous gods, and they were the Draconians, Draco, a 7th Athenian. And they cast the Draconians to the lower world. When you go into the lower world, you've got beta, alpha, theta, delta brainwaves at the lower world. So these beings realised they can manipulate the brainwaves of humans. So let's put that aside temporarily. We'll come back to them. So let's go back to Zeus. So Zeus's descendants decided, let's not kill off each other. Let's not have wars. Let's create a new game. and seeds can create the best hybrid species. So in 776 BC, we formed the Olympic Games. The first Olympic game was Hercules, which was Zeus' son. They say it's mythology. No, the Olympic Games is reality. And Zeus won the first Olympic game. Sorry, Hercules won the first Olympic game, and his father was Zeus. Now, let's take 776 BC, add 2023, add them together, and you get 2,799. But take BC and AD, and there's an extra year. That's 28, 2,800 years. Well, the changes in the 7, and the link between the visible and invisible world is 8. 4 sevens are 2,800 years, new gods come through. So what are they doing right now? They're harvesting as many souls as they can into the game of the future for Groundhog Day, preventing those people from moving on. But you've got to choose to go into the game, for that's law. They cannot make you go into the game. They must let you know what they're going to do. They let you know what you can do, but you must choose to go into the game to be trapped in the game of the future. Understand?
Wow, I knew it was something like that was going on. I mean, we're seeing everyone being pressurized into getting this vax globally right now.
Well, I'm going to show you something else. For everybody out there, go back and have a look at the 1992 Barcelona Olympic Games. It's all about the coronavirus in 1992, letting you know the future. Then go to the 2012 Olympic Games in London, and they trained 1,000 people to play the drums. And it was called pandemonium. It was a ritual. While everybody's watching, they're feeding the rituals. Then they swing across the audience to all the sick kids in bed, letting you know they're going to take the children in the future. Have a look at the 1992 Barcelona Olympic Games. It's all about the coronavirus in 1992, letting you know the future. Then go to the 2012 Olympic Games in London, and they trained 1,000 people to play the drums. And it was called pandemonium. It was a ritual. While everybody's watching, they're feeding the rituals. Then they swing across the audience to all the sick kids in bed, letting you know they're going to take the children in the future. You see, these beings are petrified of us when we integrate with spirit. I'll give you a little story. My mother died when I was 15, and my sister was fostering Aboriginal kids. And what happened is that she came home one day in tears. I said, what's up? So her father was an American sailor. So she had light skin, blonde hair. And she got the sun, and I'd go pretty black, and she'd go pretty pink. And what happened was they called her white trash. And that really upset her. So she saw no point in here. So what she did, she went to Africa. She put a car in a caravan on a ship and went to Africa. She got to Africa, she said, where's the worst place in Africa? And they said, Uganda. She drove to Uganda. She said, where's the worst place in Uganda? They Kitcum. She drove to Kitcum, was a war zone. She pulled up under a tree and started singing songs. The kids come out of the jungle. Well, it didn't take long, and there were thousands. They had to build a big camp, put a wall up, and every day there were 1,000 people coming all over Africa there. And they go and pick up the bodies in the morning, they bury the bodies. And she has systems from around the world. And eventually she built the largest orphanage in the world. Only orphanage has its own hospitals, its own schools, education system, teach you how to grow, crop, find the water. Everything was in this. But in that period of time, the rebels came in. They ripped the windows off the caravan, ripped the doors off, they're going to rape and kill her. And she integrated with the spirit. She said, this is the temple of God. You touch the temple, I will destroy it. Out! Well, the things that were running the beings that were running these people at the moment of time, these soldiers, the moment you integrate with the spirit, they become petrified of her. They were thrown out of to drop their rifles, they ran. They never dared come back to the area again, which allowed her to open the largest orphanage in the world. Matter of fact, she died a few years ago of cancer, and she was awarded the Order of Australia. They had a book written out called The Lioness of Africa, talking about her. But someone from Africa the other day, and they said, oh, we know about her. They teach her right through Africa now through all the schools and what she did. So she's changed the life of Africa. My thing was to get this knowledge back into our communities and to the rest of the world, because we need to understand this knowledge of how the universe truly works. And that's where I am today. Most of our communities have forgotten it. We have trained people from 42 countries around the world today. We're getting changes. We can change time. It blows your mind when you work with spirit and this universe, what you can actually do. And it teaches you about the fact that what is reality.
If we work with holographic kinetics and connect with our spirit, can it help clear out the poison shot that we've taken?
Look, I don't want to go on the air and say we can do this. But what I'm saying is that we do certain things that have the ability to cancel out certain other things and to change time. And what we've been doing with crew that had to have that because of their work, we've worked on them and we've had changes and not one of them had a problem. The other day, they started showing us the 9/11 update of what really happened and the people, what they saw and everything else. And I'm watching that and all of a sudden I realised something that has only come in the last few months that I'm teaching my students. So I'm just going to show you something before I go back to that. I want you to draw a line. And above that line is action, and below that line is reaction. So we have action, we have reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction. Now, under that line is the underworld. And every reaction you have, you feed some form of life form in the underworld, whether it be an entity or another being, you're feeding it. If you're at point zero and you are the observer to the game, without reacting to the game, you're not feeding anything in those dimensions. So I look back at the 9/11 and I thought, oh my God, that was the biggest food source for these beings ever created in our world. But wait, they're letting more beings through into human bodies right now. They need another big mass hit for world events to feed all these beings that are coming through. Another reaction. Something else is going to take place between now and August next year, which is the end of the conjunction. Something else is going to take place. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be big because it has to make people around the world react to it. It has to feed these beings and let more beings through. Look, we've got a video here of a man. The man's running. He's in a race, he's running, and he collapses. Another man comes up to help him, and next minute, out of his body, the camera captures, because it captures the infrared spectrum, you see, and it captures this 7-foot draconian morph out of his body. He tries to get his foot stuck in there because he's pinned to him, you see, he's part of him now. Next minute, he morphs back into the guy. The guy gains consciousness, gets up. You don't see the draconian anymore because it's morphed inside the guy, and the guy runs off. So I'm going to explain how these beings are working. Let's go back 2,000 years ago. Before 2,000 years ago, they started, and they built all the temples. And on the temples are the gargoyles and the winged serpents. And then they have the entrance, which is short for, the entrance is short for entrancement, and they would entrance you through the entrance and down to be altered at the altar. Now, that first temple formed what was known as the Templars. And the Templars would kill the Muslims, they'd kill the Christians. But if you became a Templar, you're right. So then from the Templars came the Knights of Malta and then the Order of the Red Cross. That's why they had a big red cross on them, you see. Then the Thule Society, where Hitler belonged to, he gave his body over to these beings. Jason Society, Round Home, Miller Groups, Cullen Crossbone, Fabian Lodge, Orient Lodge, Green Lodge, Amazing, Fremont, etc. Now, they've had 2,000 years to put men in positions of power around the world from secret societies. They've just activated draconian these men recently with this COVID as part of the culling process, as part of Agenda 21, which starts in 2021. I have the target for every country in the world of the depopulation program. And they need to, and this is why it's called a harvest, they need to harvest souls back into the Groundhog Day of the future. Understand?
Totally.
Now, to understand that, when these men go into secret society, I want you to understand this. The universal law. He who enters the game of another is subject to the law of the game. In other words, he's taken over because he entered the game. I'll give you an example of that. I've got somebody very famous in Canada, and their 5-year-old little girl was taken over, or their niece, I should say. So we cleared the niece, and she's doing great. I can't believe the changes. Thank you. A week later, what's going on? She came home last night. She told her mother she's going to kill herself, she's going to kill her, and the whole family that night went berserk. Went berserk? That's talking about mass entity. You see, what am I dealing with? So I don't want to talk to you anymore. You have the mother contact me. There's something I need to know. So when the mother contacted me in brackets, she said, before I bought this house, it was owned by drug addicts. Thank you. The drug addicts opening wormholes to other dimensions, let in entities, spirits, and a whole range of demonic features in there. Now, when they leave, they don't take their friends with them. And when the family moves in that house, he who enters the game of another subject laws the game. The little girl's been cleared. She's coming home. She's vacant possession. They're trying to see who can jump the little girl. So we had to go in and get the team to clear the house, then clear the little girl again. Now she's sleeping peaceful. No more problems. That's how subtle this is.
So even doing things like drinking alcohol, we're welcoming in an entity, or
if you take excess, look, if you want alcohol with your tea, you want a beer with your tea or something, that's fine. It's when that groggy feeling comes over, because what that groggy feeling is, it is your defence has been lowered. And the moment your defence has been lowered, you're vulnerable to whatever's in the air that wants to jump you. When you take drugs, oh yeah, when you take drugs, my God. You know, they start with small drugs and they'll let the little fellas in. Then the mediocre drugs, but when you get in the big stuff, that's the big boys come through and they don't want to leave. I've had 4 massage tables broken in half by some of these big fellas coming up. They didn't want to leave. You know, I've had things sitting up, hissing, spitting me out of bodies on the table. I've had metamorphosis taking place on the table in front of me. Nothing ever surprised me anymore because we're not what we think we are. We're what it is in the field of us can morph because there are 6 invisible bodies and 1 visible body. They're out here on the infrared spectrum. Now just watch this. I had a little girl recently, 12 years old, came to me and she's out of control. She's out of control. She's having sex with brothers and sisters. You know, 10 years old, I found her iPad opening up and like they keep brothers and sisters separate. Opened the iPad up and she had naked photos of herself, sent them in overseas as a 10-year-old. Okay, so the little girl's on the table and she's saying, it's all right, it's all right. And I can hear the psychologist, it's all right, dear, it's all right, dear, as they come and get on the table. So we're back to cause and effect. So what you got is, first off, you got both parents on drugs when she was conceived. The old man shot through. 3 months later, he comes back and they go on heavy drugs and they're having wild sex. Now wait. I have had 9 women come to me that have been in the middle of sex and the partner has shapeshifted on top of them into a reptilian. I have a man who's got one end, we have a video of him, and this thing's taken over. When you have sex, they take over, and the women freak out. I said, of course they would. You know? Now, while they're on heavy drugs and they're having wild sex, this thing comes through, enters, and it jumps the little girl. And when it jumps the little girl, she's out of control, because this thing here, it only knows the program of what it was created for. And that was it came in through the sex, the wild sex and the drugs. So it's totally running up. Till we found him and we took him out, which will make changes. So, here's a pregnant woman. I'm going to show you this. Here's a pregnant woman. I want you to have a look at this. Okay. When people are on heavy drugs and having sex, these things take over the body and they're actually having sex through the body, not them. And this is what is produced. Can you see that video? I see a little down the bottom corner there. You see the gargoyle in the bottom corner?
wow,
Baby?
looks like a gargoyle in there, all right?
That's it, that's it. Now, by the time that little kid's a teenager and mother says, why did you do that? It says, it wasn't me, mummy. Something made me do it. Now, I go to high security prisons. I work on people mentally insane at times. I turn them around. Why? I didn't commit the crime. Something else did when I was on drugs. We're dealing with multiple beings from multiple dimensions taking over human bodies today. You've got to understand this game. It's a multi-dimensional world. They rule it. They don't want you to know what's going on. So you've been kept in the dark for thousands of years. It's time we woke up to this game that's taking place.
How can we navigate ourselves away from these entities, from these beings? How do we deal with this intrusion of the body, seemingly that we're the spirit that's the host of this body, but all these beings seem to want to be the host too?
They do, but wait. Nothing can enter your space unless you let it in. If you choose to go and take drugs and open the door to their dimension, you chose to do that. You know, I had a Supreme Court judge ring me once, and she says, I hear you're getting changed with some of them in the prison. Well, that's correct. What are you doing? And I told her how we use, and we're going after the entities and other forces. And the first thing the judge says, I can't take that. That's making them not responsible. Bang, and hung up the phone. Well, hang on. Now, I've told you, that makes you responsible. You see, what takes place is that these kids are still responsible because they open the door and let them in. Do you understand? You share the body with something else, you let it in. If you go to war and kill, look, I've worked on soldiers from Vietnam, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, a few other places around the world, and we've got a virtually 90 to 95% success rate in one session. So I'm giving an example. 40 years after the Vietnam War, and I have soldiers on my table. I access the cause effect. I go back to Vietnam, and I have spirits of Viet Cong talking Vietnamese out of the body. Speak to me in English. What took place? He came into my ling and shot my wife, shot my child, turned the gun on me. The moment he turned the gun, I had nothing but bitterness and rage. I wanted to destroy this man, so he jumped his body. It'd been creating mental trauma for 40 years. Till I unfold time and space. I change the future and I release the spirit, and instantly no more mental trauma. I worked in soldiers flying in Vietnam, dropping napalm, 1,000 spirits in them. I got a man in America fired a mortar in the village. He got 3 spirits. The house was blown up, 3 people killed. They jumped him. And I can go on. We're doing this all the time. This is another day at the office for us. Understand how to clear these beings, because our world is not looking at the multi-dimensions of our world and not looking at us as multi-dimensional beings, which we are. And that's why mental health is not working.
Yeah, it seems to be that they're focusing just on the 5 senses and nothing beyond that.
That's correct. That's correct. And watch this. If you get them turned around, they say, oh, it's a load of crap, it doesn't work. Then the question I ask the psychiatrists, psychologists, professors is, hand me a thought. You can't, it's invisible. First the thought, then what you put into visibility, you can hand me. But you can't hand me that invisible. But we can deal with that invisible, we can find it, and we can take it out of your field.
Are leaders of countries being controlled by other forces? And if they are, what is their true agenda on this planet? What can we do about this?
You've really got to go back in time and you look at the beginning. Now, the difference is that there are a number of cultures of the world. Aboriginal culture came from another dimension. They came through time. And they came through as caretakers of this earth. Now, what happened is that when the beings came down here, you had to go back over 1 million years ago, and this planet was a different location in time and space. A big comet came in. And what happened is most of the beings here, I've worked with 17 people around the world, none of them know each other, but the same scenario. Most of the beings were massive UFOs off planet waiting and watching as the world was destroyed. But there were so many thousands, hundreds of thousands, on the earth that couldn't get off. And they were literally screaming hysterically as the planet was destroyed. So when this comet came in, hit, bang. I call it the billiard ball effect. When it hit, the earth bounced. It stopped, the earth moved to a new time, space location. Well, when you go to New York, in the Geological Museum in New York, it states, science are aware that one time the moon bounced off the earth. So the moon was a comet that came here. It bounced off the earth moved to a new time, space location. This used to be a reptilian world. So when it got hit, the shock wave went across the earth and destroyed all the reptilians upon the earth, except those who are under the water. We think came to the surface and survived again. That's why in Australia you're finding all these dinosaurs in the same area, because that's where they were when the shockwave went through and killed them, you see. So then what happened is, because this world was a new world, beings from other dimensions and other, well, first off, you've got to understand, we have extraterrestrials, extra-dimensionals, and interdimensionals. So the extra-dimensionals are beings that are coming within our own dimensional atmosphere of our whole universe, from other planetary systems, coming here. They may be on other dimensions, and I'll explain that in a moment. So when they come here, they came here because this was a new world. Well, when these worlds have been around for millions of years, you run out of resources. So here's a nice new world's been created of all its resources. So many beings came down here, and what they needed then to do is to genetically slave species. So first off, the giants were here with an Nephilim, and after 144,000 years uprise, it means after 1 to the squared to the cube, and after the past, the present, and the future, at last conjunction, they went back to where they came, they needed a new species. So they did generate a new species known as an Adapa, huge solid beast. That Adapa is the Yowie, Sasquatch, Wildstone, Yeti Man, the Gobi Man. You're in Australia, look at the Yowie. And the Aboriginal will tell you, you never catch a Yowie, mate. You're down 1 minute, gone the next, because he can move between dimensions. He's not molecular structure yet. He's a dimension away from molecular structure. You understand? It wasn't until man, Adam, the first Adama, Adam, was the first molecular mortal being. So when the Adama and the Eve made it in the laboratory of Eden, they created the very first molecular mortal being known as Adam. And that was the start of the human race in the molecular structure world we live in. Man was created as a slave to do all the mining. because he can think for himself. And every 3,600 years when they come back, yeah, they have these slaves doing all the work. Well, they put God's here to allocate, as I said. Usually every 2,800 years, sometimes every 3,600 years. Our time is up. The new gods are due next year, 2023. There has to be a major event for that to take place for 2023. That is the end of the conjunction, and therefore there has to be a new ruler for this earth put into place. I personally think it'll be Muslim. The future is to get rid of the word spirit and soul. Well, if you go into the Quran, the word spirit doesn't even exist.
Yes, exactly. I see the World Economic Forum now, especially that guy Noah Yuval Harari is pushing for us not to talk about spirit, not to talk about God, but talk about AI, talk about artificial intelligence, and move into that area. And it seems like he wants to create this reality, this matrix reality, even more into a simulation like the metaverse. Put people into this metaverse thing that's coming up now, and it's I don't want to give it too much energy, but it seems like these are their intentions.
I've already had 6 women come to me that were raped in the metaverse. So what's reality?
Wow.
Okay.
I wouldn't have thought that even that would have happened now.
When you're in another dimension of reality, what dimension you're in and what's in that dimension that can manipulate you in that dimension. I was awarded the 2005 Life Awards from Suicide Prevention Australia for turned suicide in Aboriginal communities. We had 13 kids on suicide watch. I went after what was taking place. My Aboriginal assistant on the table. I said, scan the community. I said, what's taking the kids out? Whoa, I haven't seen this one before. I said, what is it? She's like big jellyfish with tentacles. And as it locks onto them, they're drinking alcohol, it works down the tentacles, gets them to commit suicide, and absorbs the soul, which are your experiences. Okay, so I brought all the kids through committed suicide. I unfold time and space. I change the past and present on their time track for the future. I put them outside time, and this thing shrinks down and lock them in another dimension. And this is known as a cluster. So, I'm going to show you some clusters. They're only on the infrared spectrum, so you won't see them normally. You only see them in the infrared spectrum. There's 2 separate clusters there. So look at that one there, look at it. That's one cluster, and there's the other one. There's the other cluster there.
Wow.
Let's go over another cluster here, on the other side. And these are different parts around the world. This is a new one that's come in just recently around the world. There's one here, it's another one. And this
what are those things?
This is the start of another one. They are an intelligent being on the infrared spectrum out there today that can manipulate whole cities, whole communities. We found them, we take them out. Now, I wasn't aware of this, but what happens is, I was speaking to some paramedics and people work at nursing homes and that part of our students. We had a meeting, we're talking about what's coming through the infrared spectrum at present. And they're saying, well, there's a name for that. They said, people with dementia in old people's home, from 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they start getting taken over. And they're fighting, bickering and arguing. And they call it the sunset syndrome, which I'd never heard of before. Now, the sunset syndrome is as the sun sets, the infrared spectrum comes through, and these beings are on the infrared spectrum. You won't see them with the naked eye. You need an infrared camera to capture them. Now, to understand them a little bit better, let's go back to Vietnam. In Vietnam, they put 18-year-olds on helicopter gunships with night scopes based on photons. As they flew over Vietnam, they would spot what they think was snipers and they'd open fire. And these things attacked the helicopters. These young soldiers were petrified. The pilots weren't allowed to wear the night goggles. But meanwhile, these things would line themselves up in front of the helicopter, in front of the gunner, and they'd line up another helicopter, and he'd shoot through them and shoot down other helicopters that was known as friendly fire. Well, after enough friendly fire of their own helicopters were shot down, they put cameras in. What they capture? These 8 to 10 foot beings with wings and demonic features on the infrared spectrum that we don't see with the naked eye. We are multidimensional beings in a multidimensional world, and these beings have been manipulating our world since the beginning of time. We have to wake up to understand and not buy into the game or enter the game of these beings.
I get you. I totally get you, and that's what we need to do, is not to give into their game or play their game.
You see, if they violate law, there are consequences to their dimension. That's why they've got to get your permission. That's why they have to coerce you or con you.
Yes.
And a lot of coercion's going on here.
A lot of coercion. And I mean, just to take the shot injection, here in New Zealand, they were offering KFC packages, money, even cars to take it. I'm going, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. Well, they get them all back down the track, you see.
All part of coercion. Yeah, you're right. Now, there is insider talk of the Cabal gathering at the end of this month to do a ceremonial seance to connect to leaders on the dark forces on the other side, to get instructions on how to bypass our free will through a covenant. How can we prevent this? Can HK help us to connect to our higher spirit and guide us through a solution?
Well, there are a lot of things I'm aware of, and if I know the dates and what's happening, then we can work on another level. Because you see, this is our world. This is our dimension. And for these beings to come into our dimension, they need our permission. Now, if these guys get into ritual in our world without our permission, then they're violating the law, and the consequence of violation of the law. So it's really understanding how to activate these dimensions and to make change. We've done some stuff which will blow your mind, but I'm not going to hear and tell you, but believe me, we have the ability to change time, space and reality. When you understand how this universe truly works, which we teach our students. And we're doing research every now and then with research days. We'll research targets around the world and we'll make changes. Even the fires. What people don't understand is, remember the big fires we had? Well, I was flying to Adelaide at the time. I looked out the window and under us, I counted 18 United Nations jets with laser cones on their nose. That's when the fires were. When I was in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, we worked on all the fires constantly because there was over 1 billion spirits traumatised.
I was going to ask if those fires were man-made.
Yes. And what happens is watch this. At the end of the cycle, everything evolves. Now, for everything to evolve, this is a bit of a shock to our system for some people. But the animals will evolve into humans. Humans will evolve to another level, another dimension. So I'm just going to explain a case that I had 30 years ago, which was, to me, was an eye-opener because I didn't understand this. And I've got a young boy who's weeping in the eyes. He's in a mental institution, and they're pumping him with steroids. I go to work on the little boy, and the first thing comes was, cheater! I said, I beg your pardon? Cheater! I said, hang on. What do you mean cheater? Like a tiger, a cheetah. And why turn the spirit of a cheetah? That's right. And what are you doing? I'm walking through long grass. And what happened? Got a grass seed in my eye. What happened? I couldn't get out. What happened? It sprouted. I went blind and I died. I thought, what's that to do with the boy? Spirit of the boy come forward. So why don't you go back and your eyes started playing up? 13. What's happened? Smoking dope. Thank you. What's happening? The smoke from the dope's irritating my eyes. I didn't realise back in those days that the spirit of the cheetah evolved into the boy, but the trauma of the dimension of the eyes was still online. Since then, of course, we have found heaps and heaps that have come through time, and trauma comes through time that's never been done, especially around a death scene. And people set up the same trauma around a death scene. So we go back and we clear death scenes, we clear trauma of what you set up in time. And look, some of the things I've seen in my time, you got to laugh some of the things because, you know, some of the things is an eye-opener that I just never even imagined existed. But today, nothing ever surprises me anymore because we understand this world exists. We understand every living thing, no matter what it is, has a spirit. Even a rock has a spirit. A cockroach, a grass, an ant, everything. And this is where I saw Buddhism, and Buddhism understands all that. And that's why I won't even kill a cockroach because of that. But the point is, everything in nature is alive and it is going to evolve. So it usually donates its vehicle, then it evolves, takes a different vehicle in a different dimension, goes through experience of that and evolves again and evolves again. And the future will evolve again into another dimension. But everything cycles of time.
How do you think people can tap more into that intuition?
Intuition is spirit. And spirit will actually try and take care of you. Now, there's other things that can take place too. And that is, and this happened to myself and it's happened to a heap of other people. And I realised that we have what's known as a time loop. So, what's this? If I in the present can change the past, then from day on I change the future. So, Back in my early days, I'm broadside down the road, about to go into a Volkswagen. I'm on a motorbike. I'm 10 feet away, doing about 60. I look and there's no way out of it. I say, oh well, here come a couple of broken legs. The moment I accepted, like a flash of light, zap, I moved from here, instantly, into the future, outside time, and zap, I was in front of the car in a split second. Impossible to do. I've spoken to people who say I should be dead. I said, what happened? And I find time moves instantly. The moment you acknowledge it, you accept it, you can move outside time beyond the point of time. Do you understand?
Yes, I know because I've been interviewing people that have had near-death experiences, and they go on the other side, and they say that there's no time on the other side at all. They come back and they say, here, there's time, but over there where they were, there's no time. You referred earlier that 2023 there could be something going on. I just read the other day about some researchers finding how the true north is actually moving away from actually north, and it's imminent of a pole shift that's going to happen. Possibly they timed it around April, I think it was April 2023 sometime. And I thought, wow, the timing of a pole shift coming at that period of time. And they also showed a scientific experiment of how the pole will actually shift and how north will move to south, south will move to north over a period of time. I'm not sure how long that'll be. But I'm just wondering what will actually take place in a pole shift.
I'm going to show you. Science never tells you the truth because it's been kept from them. So they don't tell what they want you to know. So, I want you to look at this. This spiral here this is our Earth. We're going down, 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 down. As we get down here, time is speeding up. You go back 20 years ago, you had more time in the day than you have today. As it speeds up, we come to a point in time where it's going to stop and go yin yang and reverse polarity. When it reverses polarity, it's going to start going up, 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 and a million years from now, we're going to have the land of giganticism again. And then there'll be yin yang, it'll start going down, down, down again. You understand? And let's take an aquarium. If I get an aquarium, let's say 5 foot by 3 foot, and I put 2 goldfish, they're liable to grow about that big. If I put 10 goldfish, they'll only grow about this big. Because nature has a balance. Do you understand?
Yes, I see when people put goldfish into like a small aquarium, they stay a certain size, but then when they put goldfish into, say, like a pool-sized environment, they actually go a lot bigger.
That's correct. In nature, it's governed by the environment that it's in. Nature's perfect in the way it's done. Man doesn't listen. Man's not listening to nature. Man's not looking at nature. Man thinks he wants to control nature, but little does he realize how nature's going to be controlling him, because the universe has its own laws.
Now, if someone needs some land to be cleared or house or themselves from any ongoing trauma, how can they deal with that and clear that?
We have a highly trained team. I have a health training cultural centre in Morayfield, and I have a highly trained team that are surrogating children, animals and properties all around the world. If you've had genocide take place on a property, then you'll have spirits still stuck in that moment of time. And as that moment of time consists in the future, it will reproduce the cycles of trauma that's there until that trauma's been cleared. Now, I'll just give you a little example here. I've got a lady, and as I said, if you look around the world and you'll see a rainbow, you see a rainbow. There's 7 colours in the rainbow. There are 7 separate dimensions around this Earth itself. We're in 7-dimensional world, you understand? So, let's go back. I look through the 7 is both times come in, 7 is the chain, physical reality. I only look through molecular structure, that's all I see. I look at all the planets through molecular structure. I look at the moon through molecular structure. I only see molecules, but wait. How do I govern molecular structure? If I take the distance from the sun to the Earth, I'll multiply by the speed of light. That gives me my time, space, location, which is the spin of the electron around the nucleus. Now, if I go to any other planet out, there's a different time, space, location. It's a different dimension. Therefore, there's life in those planets, in those dimensions I don't see. Do you understand? We think there's only world. No. It's multiple worlds out there in other dimensions. And those beings are coming through other dimensions right now into our world. Because these beings are here opening wormholes to their dimension and inviting them in. One of the things is each being is a free will being in its own dimension. And you cannot take somebody into the future. Everybody must evolve at their own pace. Now, this is a story where I'm hearing a lot of people say, well, why aren't the good aliens out there coming in helping us? Okay, watch this. If you was a more advanced, intelligent being on another dimension, then you'd understand law. And you'd understand that he who enters the game of another is subject to the laws of the game. So would you want to come into this earth and get trapped in this game? Think about it. No, you wouldn't. So you'd observe from off planet. Now, the second thing. If you're a more advanced, intelligent being, you'll understand one thing, that every single being must evolve at its own pace. And if we try and we manipulate the evolvement of a being, we'll wipe out the species. Because we interfere. Do you understand? So, yes, we have other beings out there to be monitoring and watching what's taking place, but it's up to each and every one of us through our free will choice to evolve at our own pace. Some are ready for evolving, some aren't. No difference. It'll happen again in the future, because all this is going to happen again. Nothing new under the sun. See the energy of this picture there. See the light around it.
Aura. Looks like an aura.
Okay. Well, our body has 7 separate dimensions, and when we photograph them with killing photography, we get the energies of them. So, this woman here, she's been around the world riddled with pain. She goes to look at it, and they say got all the signs of syphilis, but you don't have syphilis. Okay. So, let's go and have a look. What goes back? It goes back in time, 6 years old, moved to a new house. And what happened? Blood of my uncle. What happened? He shot his 4-year-old daughter. He shot his 17-year-old son. He committed suicide, and we inherited the house. My, 3 balls of light. What's that tell me? You got 3 spirits in the field. I command, spirit of the boy, surface. Up comes the 17-year-old boy. I was having a shower. Dad walked to the shotgun and shot me. I didn't want to die. She was pity, so I moved in the body. So I call up the little girl. And watch this. My daddy just shot me. My daddy just shot me. Why did my daddy shot me? No, he didn't just shoot her. He shot her 40 years ago. But she's stuck in that moment of time. 1,000 years later, she's still stuck in my daddy just shot me. People are stuck in moments of time. Do you understand? Till we change time, put them out time, and we clear that event, and they can move on.
Is there ways to help those people move on?
That's correct. And we're doing it all the time. We're moving on people all the time. They're stuck in time. Yeah, look at the prisons. You know, look, we sit on courts, and we had a really interesting case recently where a young bloke, and he's going through the courts, he's been bashing up other kids. I said, why are you bashing them up? They've been disrespectful to their woman. Interesting. Okay, on the table. Because the courts have seemed to us to be cleared, you see. It goes back to the moment of conception, and what's happening? His mother was violently raped, and he was born from the rape. So I've been the spirit of the mother through. I'm going back reliving the trauma and changing the trauma. I've got the cause, the action, and reaction. I said, what's your reaction to this? I wanted justice, and I never got it. So a little spirit inside her has decided to deal out the justice. He doesn't know what he's doing. Till we change time, put him outside time. A couple of weeks later, he goes to the court and he says, Your Honour, I just want to thank you for allowing us to have a session. I found out things about myself I didn't even know. I found out why I'm doing the things I'm doing. I've never felt so good in my entire life, Your Honour. I just want to thank you. Well, no one ever thanks the judges. The judge and the magistrate look at each other, dismiss the case. So get work with a young bloke, got him a job, and then he's fired by the council because he's got a police record. That's the rubbish we're up against. Do you understand? The council's whinging and complaining all the time about the crime, and they're putting them back on the streets, and they complain about the crime. Don't put them on the streets. We're clearing them. Give them a chance. Give them a job.
So do you think that most of us have stuff that we need clearing out, and if we don't deal with it, we're just going to be stuck in these cycles of time until we do deal with it? Groundhog Day.
That's it. All over again.
Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat.
Everything is cycles of time. You just take it to another level as a hologram, and that minute thought you've had as a cycle of time, it takes the deja vu. It's a cycle of time also. Until we in the present change the past to create the deja vu of the future, we change a whole new future for the cycle of the future.
How do we manifest what we want?
I've found that spirit's always on my left-hand side up there, somewhere. And I find when you want something, there's a difference here. Not when you need something. There's a difference. But when you want something, you tell your spirit you want and let go of it. So you have faith in your spirit. Totally let go. Don't focus on it again. In other words, I'm letting go on, I'm letting you set up the universe ahead of me, so I walk in that direction and falls into place. Do you understand? Most people trying to manifest today is they have a need, and they're manifesting because they have a need for money or they have a lack of, but they haven't looked at the lack of where it came from. They haven't looked at why the need. If you clear the need and clear the lack of, then the world's full of abundance, and your spirit can rearrange that abundance. But it's when you're working with it and you're ready to work with it and you've let go of all those other things, then it can manifest.
So the more we connect to our spirit, the more we can become more creative.
That's correct. Because, see, what people don't realise is this left-hand side of the body, this is spirit. This is the past. This is the intuition. This is the artistic. This is the creative. Yeah. This side. This is the future. This is the masculine, the analytical world, the business world. This is the future. So this is the past. This is the present in the now, the choice I have, and the future. So we have 3 dimensions of time, which are 3 bodies of a past, present, and future on both sides. And a past, present, and future. We live in a past, present, and future. And the cycle of 9 is the end of the cycle. So physical reality dictates our future. So if we in the present can change the past and clear those issues and create the way we want for our future, then we will create a whole new future of the future.
How do you see this event, or you're saying these gods are going to maybe have a bit of a tussle? How do you see this playing out in the next year or so?
I really don't know how it's going to play out. But I think what will take them is before the gods finish the cycle, they'll try and take as many as they can into the harvest. I think something big will go down, very big, that, remember, we need to react. And every time we react, we feed these life forms in the underworld. If we're at point 0 and we are the observer without reacting, we don't feed these life forms. The more people at point 0 they don't feed no matter what happens. Just accept the moment for what happens. But don't react to the moment.
Do you think what happens here in this reality also affects what happens in other dimensions as well?
We have a cause, we have an action, we have a reaction, we have an effect. The cause is what's happening. The action, the cause is where you're at. The action, when something happens, is the action. Now what is your reaction to the action? And what decisions you make is the effect. If I'm at point 0 and I'm not reacting, I'm not feeding the underworld.
I call that Neo. What was it? Neo, non-emotional observer.
Yes.
Like Neo from the Matrix, non-emotional observer.
Because one of the people don't realise, look, I've got a doctor, and the doctor says to me, I've been drained of energy for 8 years, where's it coming from? I said, get on the table. I go back 26, thank you, what's happening? I'm a fire rescue officer, thank you, what's happening? I'm in a rescue scene, thank you, what's happening? I'm dragging a young 17, 18-year-old boy out of the car, thank you, what's happening? I feel really sorry for him because he reminds my young brother about the same age, thank you, and what's happening? No, I'm only 18, I'm too young to die. Because his defences were down, the spirit jumped him. And he's in there because he's too young to die. So he'd been draining energy for 8 years. I unfold time and space. I change the future from ever occurring again. I'll put him outside time and I'll release the spirit. And no longer is he drained of energy. See, when you have your defences down, you can take on spirits and other beings as well. When people go into a hospital and they're in an induced coma, I can pretty well guarantee somebody's going to jump them. Not a normal anaesthetic, but an induced coma. They're out of body and they're vacant possession. So every time I've worked on someone who's been in induced coma, then that's taken place. Then let's go to another one. When somebody drowns and you resuscitate them. When they drown, they step out of body. Now, when you resuscitate them, whatever jumps in is going to come forward. And how many times you hear when someone's drowned, they've never been the same since? Because they're not the same people who run the body. Whatever the area jumped the body, they need to be taken out.
I hear from a lot of near-death experiences that when they have an accident, like before the other car hits them, their spirit jumps out of the body. It's like the spirit didn't want to didn't want to feel the trauma of the body. Is that what's happening?
I don't look. I flew to Abu Dhabi. Sorry, I flew to London. I collapsed at Abu Dhabi airport, and I died at the airport with clots on my nose. I'm going out through a tunnel, and way back in the distance, I can hear, "Spirit, you get back here now." It's my partner. Next minute, I'm in reverse, getting sucked back here again. I spent a week in Abu Dhabi hospital and clots on the lungs. So I won't take long flights anymore because too many flights led to clots. And you'd be surprised how many pilots get the same thing happen to them.
Do you know of anyone that's passed on the other side and have been told to go to the light, but then they've come back?
To me, when you go to the light, you want to intend the light, you get recycled back again. Listen, you've got a white hole, you've got a black hole. I get out of here, I'm heading to a black hole, thank you very much. And I come out of white hole in the next dimension. If I go back to the white hole, I'll tell you I'll get cycled back into the game again. You understand?
I understand, because there's a lot of other people that are saying that too, especially these indigenous people that said don't go into the light. The light's a trap, you get recycled back into it. It's called a trap.
Back in the game. Well, you'll be recycled back into this game into another body.
Right.
So the whole idea is the fact that it's like a kaleidoscope. And if you visualize the kaleidoscope that opens and closes, there are multiple dimensions. There's going to be a point of time which is coming, and I believe that point of time is 2023, when all the dimensions are going to merge at one point in time. And when the time's right, we'll move to the dimension we're meant to be in. There'll be multiple dimensions, multiple worlds, just like this. You won't even notice it that fast. It'll be a similar world.
Will that depend on our conscious level at that time? Each person's conscious level?
I don't like to call the conscious level, because the conscious level is the soul of memories of experiences. It'll be where you are with your spirit and what you've chosen to clear and make changes to for your future. Some people, they haven't changed anything. Groundhog Day. Till you learn. Some never learn. They keep coming back and back. Eventually they'll learn. And then when the time comes right, it's only a dimension of time. And eventually, then they'll move to the next dimension. So those that are ready, that have learned, they've evolved, and they've changed what they did in the past to change that future. Well, they're ready to move into that next dimension. The only person who really knows about that is going to be, let's say, there's another level where you yourself may be conscious of all the things you've cleared, but there's another level up there, a part of the hologram, that decides where you go and what you've cleared and what you're ready for.
Wow. So we can try our best down here, but at the end of the day, there's something else that'll probably...
That's it. My thing is, that's really interesting. I see the ego of some people out there, and I don't want to be rude when I say this, but they're full of bullshit. And they're trying to convince themselves and everybody else that they've cleared all their rubbish. And straight away I know you'll be back. You're trying to convince yourself. You don't have to convince yourself if you've done it. We've helped people that have had strokes. We've had people that have had car accidents and got brain damage. Because first is in the invisible, the trauma, then it comes into the visible. If I change the invisible, I can then change the visible. You understand? Our main system today is just looking at the visible. It's not looking at the invisible bodies that hold trauma. So there's areas we're getting to that, look, remember, we have never had 1 cent of funding from any government in the world. I've funded this myself. The way we've funded is by teaching around the world, and that's allows us to put the funding back into our research and keep our research going on what we're doing. But I really believe that if we had the funding for people in communities that don't have the money, and for them to be trained, and we start training lots of people that are capable of making change in their own communities, then I believe that we could accelerate changes out there en masse in every country.
I think
we're still researching. We're researching new areas no one's ever gone to. You know, I can tell you some of the things that just blow your mind, and some of our research that we've gone to, and science has never gone there before. Look, watch this. This is bloody mine. I got a man who's got stitches there, stitches there, both his arms snapped backwards and 3 broken ribs by an invisible force. One, what happened? I went to a party 9 years ago. I got drunk. I woke up the next morning, there's a guy in my chest belting the living daylights out of me and accusing me of stealing. I have no idea what he's talking about, but I've never been so petrified in my entire life. From that day on, the thing would surface and it was huge. It picked me up and threw me down flights of stairs. It broke both my arms, broke 3 of my ribs. Another time, it jumped into the girlfriend, ripped tons of hair out of my head, clawed me. It was huge, and I want to get rid of it. So I bet you do. Get on the table. So I locked on this guy and I called this thing up, and he starts physically metamorphing on the table. His mouth shapes out, his mouth's yawning, he's belching like 20 times my size, belching on the table. I thought, what in the bloody hell have I got here? Spirit, how far back in time this take place? And speaking out of him, his spirit said, 1,500 years ago. Thank you, Spirit. Go there. What happened? I'm a hunter. What happened? I hunted down a bear. What happened? I got close to the bear. It was still alive. I thought it was dead. As I got closer, turned on, bit of my right arm, bit of my left arm, and clawed me death. Now watch this. Universal law. Here's the singular law of intent, singular law of intent. The duality of the two have integrated together into a law of agreement valid through time and space for eternity. Now, they're both stuck in the agreement of that dimension of petrified. 9 years ago, we never became petrified, like an old record player. That dimension's now active, and the bear wants out. I bring the bear up, I send him back 1,500 years, I change the past and present for the future. I bring the man back and change the past and present and future. Both parties integrate to the change, and I release the spirit of the bear. The moment I release the spirit of the bear, the man says, oh my God, I've had nightmares for years, been attacked by a bear. That's not all, look at this, he took his shirt off. His chest, his backside were covered in hairs 1.5 inches long. The spirit of the bear and the man were morphing into the one field because both spirits were one body. So a few weeks later, my students come and said, boy, I had an interesting case the other day. I said, what? Well, I'm working on a guy who's 3 years old and on a boat at sea. He goes, come to the ladder, and Dad says, get back down, it's too rough. Knocks him down, he hits his head, he's crying, and there's a crab on the floor dying, and the spirit of the crab jumps in. So the man I'm working on the table today was the 3-year-old boy back in time. So I go back, I change it, I clear it, I release the crab. 2 weeks later, he rings me and says, can you come to my house and work on my son? I went to the house to work on his son come out. He said, I nearly blew out, nearly blew my mind what I saw. His son come out, has no feet. He has 2 fat flippers, and he has no fingers, just nippers. We have the spirit of the crab and the man have morphed into his son, and the physical structure of both parties. We're getting areas no one has ever got to in this universe of ours, my understanding. There's so many areas we can change because we understand how dimensions of reality and how spirits can morph out of bodies. And we have things shape-shifting constantly at our table. Look, nothing surprises me anymore. But it takes us to areas to understand how to make changes. Because a lot of these people like that, you know what they do with them? They lock them up so nobody can see them.
Yes. And they don't know how to deal with them. The other day I saw this lady, and she said that she felt in a previous life she was a wolf, and she was like acting like a wolf, and she even some of her facial features were like a wolf.
Yeah. And it possibly had the spirit of the wolf in there. Look, I'll tell you, if in the past, like only a man, I worked on a man the other day actually, and no, hang on. This little boy, this was yesterday. A little boy, he's 8-year-old boy, he's petrified of dogs. We've got to look at the cause and effect. And we're back to a past life. He's a 72-year-old man who's attacked by 2 dogs. He died at 76. But between then and 76, he was too scared to leave the house because he was petrified of dogs. His mother says he's too petrified to leave the house. He's petrified of dogs. By the time I finished working on him yesterday, we got a dog. So I brought the dog in, and the little boy's sitting there, normally be petrified, screaming. He sat there calmly, looked at the dog and didn't, We changed the dimension by changing what happened in the past. So people can have animal spirits and take on the traits of those animals. There's so much to understand, but once you understand HK, and we teach you these keys, look, our world is riddled with people with issues that need to be cleared. And our mainstream system is a failure. It's not working. They do not recognise what we recognise, and they do not understand what we recognise. And we're getting changed because they do not recognise what it is we are aware of and how to find these things and change time, which we can do.
Exactly. I foresee having HK in a future society where It's like, just like going to the doctor, but instead you're going to a practitioner, and it's just an everyday thing to get stuff cleared out. I'd love to see that in a future society.
Well, we've got a shop. We've got a shop set up. It's our Health Training Cultural Centre, and it's got the Aboriginal painting artwork. It's got didgeridoos, boomerang spears. It's got everything there. It's our cultural centre we've set up. But we have people walking the streets suicidal. Come in. They come in suicidal, depressed. They go out glowing in one session, and that's common. You know, we get guys out of prison. We've worked on that many murderers. They come out of prison and they don't want to do the same thing, go back again. So we go to the cause effect of what set it up. And by God, you should hear some of the stories. And I can understand these guys while they've been traumatised. What's happening as kids. And we just change time. We put them outside time. So they're not stuck in the moment. Because remember, a repeat offender is repeating and repeating the cycles of time that he's stuck in until we clear those dimensions. Which is easy to do.
Do you think over the past 2 years up to now, you're getting a lot more cases and a lot more people coming to you for clearings?
Oh, look, we're inundated. I've just upgraded the crew in my shop there, and I think we've got 5 or 6 there now. And we've got 2 teams operating every single day, just working on surrogate sessions around the world, as well as the clients are coming off the streets, just flat out. And I've got top students in every state in Australia that I refer clients onto constantly, and other countries overseas I refer clients onto constantly. It's getting busy, but not only getting busier, I'm getting more new complex cases that are teaching me. I've been doing it for 50 years. I'm still learning because the universe keeps on giving me more complex cases to understand and pass on to my students, you see.
And if people want a session or if they want to ask you some questions, how can they contact you? Where do they go?
Steve@holographickinetics.com. We do have a really good surrogate team, and that surrogate team is working with animals around the world. It's clearing properties around the world. It's clearing people that can't get to a practitioner around the world, and they do a report on what they find, and we're getting massive change because people write back to me and let me know the surrogate team what they found, and they'll spot on. We've been doing it for a long time now, and we know how this universe works, and we virtually know whatever you're stuck in a moment of time, and we just need to find the moment. When we ask your spirit, it's going to take me there. It's going to show you. You're going to read it. I tell you nothing. I just assist your spirit to show you so you can make changes to your dimension reality. It's not my reality. Do you understand? It's the client's reality. And they're changing. Their spirit's changing. And the moment their spirit changes, my thing is thank your spirit for what it just did for you. Thank you very much.
Do you think showing gratitude to our spirit at times is good to keep those vibes going?
Look, I look at it like this. If you was a little spirit in the body and you were doing everything for that person you want, and those people there that you're doing the work for are thanking the gods, the guides, the angels, they're thanking everything outside themselves and not thanking their own spirit. How would you feel? My thing is start to acknowledge your spirit and it'll start to work with you. Every day, little things happen every day. Thank it. Then tell it. You want a parking spot, drive down the road. Say, Spirit, give me a parking spot, and before you know it, a parking spot will appear in front of you. That's just starting something manifesting. And the more you do it, the more you work with Spirit, the more it'll happen.
What about if I want a new wife or something like that? Spirit will provide, I guess.
So put out exactly what you want, let go of it, go to the pub tonight, she'll appear. You tell her what you want, it'll set up for you.
Look, Steve, this has been an amazing podcast. Can you give us one last meaningful, positive message out there for everyone?
Remember one thing. Every action creates a reaction. Every reaction feeds the underworld. Stay at point zero. Observe, don't react. Therefore, you're not feeding anything and nothing can enter you.
Absolutely awesome message there, Steve. Thank you once again for your time and appreciation to everything you're doing for people out there and for this world. And I wish you all the best for the rest of this life. And I always say, have a great life, not just a great day.
Thank you. We hope to. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Steve. Great.